Hello, man. Hello, McDowell. Hello. Hello, everybody. Give it a few minutes, see how my sound is. Can't hardly see where I'm at here.
Hello, man. Hello, McDowell. Hello.
That sounds good. That sounds good. Hey, Brissy boy, how are you today? How's everything going for you today? As you can see, it's cold here. I got the heater going again, and it's cold, and it's that's life in Ohio, I guess. So let me take a look at what I'm doing today. Okay. Put these up. Today we're going to talk about what I kind of I've been hearing the term international cosmopolitanism being flipped around lately, and it's a different term, and it has more of a philosophical background rather than globalism. Globalism gets attached to economics and a philosophical cosmopolitanism internationally gets attached to the person, and it brings up a few interesting questions. Today we'll talk a little bit about absurdism, and absurdism is quite the opposite of absurdity. Absurdity is the person that absurdism is used on. Sometimes you say something. Sometimes someone will say something that it's just so absurd. You have to say something absurd to them to make them realize that it is absurd what they're talking about. But that's what started off my brain quest today, and yeah, I do have those things which interest me. I was looking at the expat community and our little group, and expatriates, and a lot of times mental expatriate from their country because of a lot of different reasons. But what they're really asking for is they're asking to be welcomed in a different country, in a different culture. And in that country and in that culture, they're practicing international cosmopolitanism. They're asking for that country or that culture to just let them hang around and be groovy with all that stuff and everything. But a lot of times when I see this expatriate community that's they're on the internet here for us to visually watch and hear how they think about their situation and everything. And most of them go over to different countries and they marry and they blend and they insert a bit of cultural diversity and maybe a little bit of biological diversity if they get married and have kids in that country. And they're welcome. And but what I see as absurdity is when a bunch of these expatriates get together with the alt-right political view, and they were talking about the wall. It's something I hate to bring up, the wall between Texas and the lower United States and Mexico. They're all for the wall, which seems to be a little bit absurd because these are people that ask to go into countries and be welcomed. So I don't know what kind of absurdity that would be, but that is an absurd statement. If you're an expatriate, you can't be a person that's for walls. Otherwise, you can't be an expatriate. You can't go to a foreign land. And Kant described this as the right to resort. Kant said, understanding this essential communal thing is further emphasizing the claims of equality and universal rights and of the human being to travel. We see these with sovereign citizens too, the rights to travel without being exploited for road taxes. That's what they're saying. The right to travel without being exploited for roads. So they're cosmopolitan thinkers in a way, cosmopolitan laws and rights sometimes manifest in our norms and our cultures at a global glance. There's some permanency in those laws, and there's an idea of endeavoring peace. Kant setting these laws. The philosophical roots. It's interesting how much our program and our men and the way men think go back to Diogenes from Sinapa. He was the guy that lived in the barrel outside of Greece, and he was the founder of the movement, of the cynical movement, of becoming a cynicist. And when he was asked, I put it in the low bar, he was asked where he was from or what country is it. He said, I'm a citizen of the world. He was what they called a cosmopolitius in Latin. In ancient Greece, you could move around pretty much, and this was the invention of the Stoics. And in Diogenes, Diogenes, he lived in a barrel outside and of the city, and he's very happy in his barrel, and people gave him alms, and he lived as a citizen of the world. And so the idea seems to come from that. And we have the idea of movement, free movement among the world, which on one end could be good and on one end could be bad. We look at the expatriates and how they move around, and we envy them as these, the expatriates or country. They go to a foreign and exotic country and blend right in. And but we seen the example of the two girls that went to that country, and they were just when they went to that country, they brought on some foreign ideologies, and that foreign ideology, I guess, was the Swedish idea. The two Swedish girls that were killed in that last country, so they weren't accepted well when they brought an ideology with them. When it was perceived by the country's members that they brought an ideology with them. But the expatriates, on one hand, I don't think it's about an ideology. Unless you start talking about stuff like the wall, then you are starting to bring an absurd argument to that of the right for humanity to move around and all that stuff. And you yourself, most of us ourselves, have experienced this. I'm very familiar with South America, and I spent a lot of time in my going back and forth to South America, and it's the sort of the bat in Paraguay sort of thing. But I was in the army at that time, so we look at this, and there's a lot of different kinds of cosmopolitan thinkers and cosmopolitan, and that's what we're talking about. When you bring that that global mentality to another country, will you be accepted in that country? We're talking about resources, we're talking about minerals, we're talking about plants and things like that in their country that you're going to be using. So that's where the argument comes in, and there's going to be some suffering, some perceived suffering of indigenous people in that country if they let in too many outsiders. And that's what we get with the wall. We have a developing argument about that in America, and the developing argument is about and I think they put it as what is it? They'll call it's rootless cosmopolitanism, where people pick up and they try to immigrate to there, and they're called rootless. This is a rhetorical weapon when they call it rootless cosmopolitan. Just lately, you've seen Jim Acosta of CNN. He was accused of rootless cosmopolitan bias or rootless cosmopolitanism. Is in the new immigration plan, which we don't have an immigration plan. We used to have NAFTA, the North American trade agreement, that covered all this stuff. And so when we see the decline of NAFTA, and I don't want to do the argument with Bill Clinton. There is no possible way Bill Clinton could have known that corporate entities and Burgess and the people in charge and the elite would have pulled out on the American citizen like they did. So I don't even want to go into that, but that argument. But NAFTA used to be a trade agreement that covered immigration. But since we've seen the downfall of NAFTA and the TPP and the TTP and all that, and then the new lack of kind of any kind of immigration policy or work, when you're talking about the right to work or temporary visas, stuff like that, you have to have some kind of policy. But it seems like we don't. It's an endless struggle of a lot of people misinterpret this whole thing for multiculturalism or Europeanism or liberalism, and a lot of people will look at it like human rights and global justice and stuff like that. So Diogenes thought about it was human rights and global justice and how we all treat each other and stuff like that. Trump was just he put on this display of the rhetorical use of rootless cosmopolitanism. And so we see this thing playing out in America, and I think the absurdity and the absurdity of some of the arguments just really bother me, and we have to pick these things apart and look at them and see what is absurd. And that's what I always look at in things. I don't know if there's such thing as hypocriticalism, because that's what I would fall in. I'm very anti-hypocritical. When people start acting hypocritical, it just bothers me, and that's what I've seen in this argument with the expatriates arguing against. And I don't think they really studied what they were. They're international cosmopolitans. They're people that move around, and they believe in that thing. And there's sometimes links between the Burgess and this. Stalin did it too. Stalin did rootless cosmopolitanism in 1946. Yeah, when he attacked the vision of the positive Soviet hero, and all these things that were foreign and cosmopolitan were what he said was liberalism, and we don't need this liberalism under these Leninistic laws that were coming on. And so when we look at the idea there, and we start looking at the idea of how much Trumpism and Leninism kind of blend. And it becomes so hypocritical when these people start speaking, these words start coming out of their mouths. I thought this was a good topic after we discussed Randyism, Ayn Rand, and objectivism yesterday. So I thought this would be a good international cosmopolitanism to lead into absurdity. And what is an absurdity? When people start telling on themselves, when they believe two things. We used to call it in MGTOW milk apple. Milk apple was total absurdity. Let me check back on my page and say hello to everybody. Hello, Joey. Hello, Mike. Hello, Silent Sage. Hello, Brissy. Hello, everybody that's in. There's not too many people listening. And I wanted to give you at this point, as I'm saying hello, my copycat troll found me and immediately changed his name yesterday to Traversable. Traversable. As soon as I changed my name, 5 hours later, he started a new channel and changed his name again. So my copycat is still stalking me, and I'm kind of flattered my copycat does that, because he's fixated on me. He's obsessed with me. And I was like, there's a few people that was during my time in MGTOW, and it's always an interesting topic. When someone gets obsessed with you, when somebody starts acting, when somebody starts stealing your identity, when somebody starts dressing like you, when somebody gets a beard like me. I don't think too many guys who used to wear a beard like me now. We got monks out there. They start impersonating me, and it's flattering when they do the MGTOW monk thing, and they grow their beard and they call themselves a MGTOW monk. But it's not flattering when they become such a neurosis that they start copying my channel. They start copying everything about me, and it just becomes hate. And but it is flattering when a few people come around, and there's a few new guys that are around doing. And there's some successful channels that copied the beard, that copied the MGTOW monk on me. I am the original MGTOW monk. I think that's what most of them were talking about. They were talking about me, but they're afraid to say that. Ah, that's good. I was outside, as you can see by my my jacket, and I came in and got some tea, and it's cold. It's cold. Dougie likes it outside. Dougie, he slept outside all night long, and it always freaks me out. In the middle of the night when I'm not sleeping, I'll just sit by the window and watch him outside because he's sleeping. He sleeps soundly. Dougie sleeps soundly right on a pile of snow. And I just watch him, and he's like smiling, and he's happy out there, and it's like 20 degrees, and I'm like, man, that is amazing how animals can do that. Seals can withstand that kind of chilliness. And Dougie, when I go out there, there's this thing that happens. This is why I automatically checked with Dougie. My buddy says, well, they'll arrest you in your town if you leave your dog out all night. And I says, I know, but I can't get him back in. He won't come back in. He doesn't like it inside. He sleeps inside during the day, and he goes outside. He relaxes and eats during the day. But so I have to check his underfur. And so I went out and I checked his underfur, and dogs like wolves and Alaskan Eskimos and that, they have the ability to raise their body heat. So I stuck my hand under his fur, and I was like, oh man, that is like 90. Oh, it's at least 100 degrees under there. So he has the ability to do that. So I'm not too worried about him getting hurt or getting frozen like I would. If I stayed out all night, they would find a Joesicle outside, and the next morning I would look like a bum that just froze outside of somebody's house. I think a lot of people would be happy about that too, but I could never stay outside like he does. Oh, always on the side of the rich guys. Who's always on the side of the Joe? My brain just shut down really quick. Let it reboot. That sucks, man. Oh, why didn't I have my pockets? I left the store. Oh, what happened, Joey? I spent 9 hours in a police cell. Got a fine for you got a fine for 200 euros? That sucks. That's $375 here. Ooh, that's a healthy fine. So I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to hear that about, I don't know why you got arrested, but, hey, we can only imagine in today's times. Today we were just talking about international cosmopolitanism. We're going to talk a little bit about absurdity, cultural identity, stuff like that. When we talk a lot in MGTOW, we talk about embracing Western ideas, and I think these things go in hand. Not that the West is so it used to be these things. I think a lot of things are going to have to change even in our philosophy. And this tells us how our philosophy is, our philosophy as people. We see the alt-right and those people raging against, immigration and that stuff. And our philosophy, some of our philosophies rely on this steady idea of what the thing is. And then when you dissect it, Descartes would say, what is this thing? What is this stuff that I'm dissecting? And I take it down to nothing. And then I look at it, and global citizenship and all that stuff, and the ability to move around, and what is a democracy compared to a capitalism. And lately it seems that democracy is in bondage, and we're held to dismiss important things about our national identity. And these important things, these movements and establishments in our democracy, most of the time you could just, sail into a New York harbor there and look at the Statue of Liberty and read it and know everything you need to know about America. Give me your poor, give me your weak, give me your give me your tempest turned. I get a little tear every time I read that, and because I'm sure my grandfather read that when he came into the Bay, and my total existence relied on that. I don't know if my total existence I would be a South African citizen right now if it didn't, and I don't know if I would have. I don't know if I would have done well in that citizenry in South Africa now. So I made some ginger latte. That's what I made, a ginger latte. If you don't know how to do it, just replace your coffee with tea and some ginger, and put it in your cappuccino maker and make a ginger latte instead of a coffee. And sometimes it's just really really delightful, and it's good for the after you come in from the cold and stuff like that. That's good for you. I don't know exactly what ginger is good for you. It's good for your digestive system. I don't know if it clears out the flora, what they would call it. And that's interesting. I hear we talked a lot. I should probably talk about this female bacteria now. They gave it a pretty name. They called it flora. It's the flora in the split V. It's flora. It's just gardening, and it's funny how men get when it refers to a male, it's an ugly thing. It's usually a pejorative that gets used, and when it's a female thing, it's some pretty word that minimalizes minimalizes what bacteria is. And I think they are really, really sensitive to them conversations, because that's what my video that got me taken down last time was about. It was about flora. Flora. Yeah, it's like a garden. A lot of these things, we could look at the how things are different for men and women too, and strength and stoicism. Ooh, that was a good one. Strength and stoicism sometimes is a good thing, and that's what Diogenes was talking about. He talked a lot about strength and stoicism and independence and free will. Everything else MGTOWs love. But with those things, if you want to love it and you want to have it, you got to take an ideology that protects it. And so you become this this international cosmopolitan person that protects those sort of things as a MGTOW. I want to be able to travel. Not that I do a lot of traveling. I don't like traveling. I think I've been disappointed everywhere I've ever went. Is why I don't like traveling. Everywhere I ever went on this planet, when I was young, I looked at and I just looked around and I kind of compared it to Cleveland, and I was like, nah, this place, it's got trees and it's got grass and it's, the sun shines and it's, and there's not much difference, and I don't really feel any different here than I felt at home. And there's no enlightenment that came from the travel. And so I kind of I realized at a certain point that everywhere I went in the world, that I just took myself with me. And if you're one of those guys that just take yourself with you, don't bother traveling, because it's not going to be this big enlightenment. And it's highly overrated. I think it's highly overrated. I wouldn't make a good expat. I like settling in somewhere and just kind of disappearing into the flora. Oh man, I wonder if we're not going to be able to use the word flora anymore in that sense. Because now it becomes ambiguous. But just another linguistical thing that we'll have to work out in the future, the ambiguity of flora. What were we talking about at that point? Yeah, we were talking about the two girls that went over to, I can't remember the country, and then they said ISIS killed them and beheaded them and everything. So in that case, they weren't too well accepted on this cosmopolitan journey that we're taking. Uh, and I don't, you can kind of expound on your ideas with the what were their what were they bringing with them, what baggage were they bringing with them, um, what did these people see when they looked at them and they thought, geez, they're just and I can imagine that they this idea of feminism coming to some of these ISIS states or Muslim states and everything. That's the big evil for them. Man, I would say we don't need to fight a war against international international terrorism. All you do is you just get feminism to go. Oh yeah, we'll send feminism. That's worse than any army we can. any army we can send. We'll just send all our feminists, and then yeah, you can handle that problem. So looking through this thing, the Muslim people fell into a good and bad dichotomy they fall into the good and bad dichotomy of westernization. They fell into this the cultural influences of westernization. They don't want to fall into cultural influences of westernization, and they don't really. It could be subjective. It's exalted subjectivism when who they let in and who they don't let in. Sometimes a Canadian is accepted better than an American in some countries, and basically we're both the same. But that's just what the perception through the Muslim view of a reliable. It's pretty much a reliable rejection of cultural influences that what they're saying, and that's what they were rejecting when the two girls went down there. It's cultural identities. These two girls presented a cultural identity which they weren't happy with. Let me go back and take a look and see who's in. And say hello to everybody. If Hondo, hey, give all the feminists to the Muslim. Yeah, that's what I think. We don't have to send armies of men. I don't think we do. We'll just threaten them. We'll send our feminists over. Then you'll have to. Yeah. You think you after about 10 years with an army of feminists, you'll be begging for an army of men with guns to come. Most likely to save you. But I think that is their worst fear. And then we get back to the worst fear is the cosmopolitan traveler. Islam has is the cosmopolitan traveler, especially what Marx would call the collective of the women, which is now we know as feminism. Coming to their country in mass immigration. So I thought, well, that's when you think about it, that could be we could weaponize feminism then, and in some cases, I think with Mexico and this, and I think it's a good, litmus test too on things. This litmus test of feminism. If you sent a bunch of feminists to Mexico, would it bother them? No, I don't think it would bother them. They would be, yeah, they're just them girls. We'll keep an eye on them, but we don't want them mating over here or breeding. But on the other hand, if you send it to say Peru or Paraguay or maybe Brazil, where they're highly conservative now. If you threaten them to send, okay, we're going to send this what would you call it, the entourage of feminists to your country, and look for the reaction. That'll tell you where the country is good. That'll tell you a lot about the cultural. That'll tell you about their cultural their cultural expectations of America, what they expect these people to do and everything. Now in Islam, if you said, "Oh, we're going to send about a couple dozen feminists over," they would go nuts. They would absolutely go nuts. No, 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 no. But in the argument, it plays out. It plays out. And I think that's what Marcus was saying in his anti-feminism. Now you look at the argument. I mean, we don't want them. You don't want them. Do we have similar? Do we have something in similar? We have these similar ideals. So can we build on that? I mean, but it's iffy. You know, a lot of people. I mean, you're talking about the far progressive left that would say, "Oh yeah, we want them. We want all this. Yeah, this is great." And we're talking about. You know, cucks, cucks, and stuff like that. And there's cucks on the right, and there's cucks on the left. I know that. You have cuckservatism, and then you have libtard cuckservatism on the right, and this kind of gives you an idea. I always look at things in a bar. What happens on the right, it happens on the left. What happens on this end of the bar, and if it happens on this end of the bar, then yeah, if this be true, this be true too. And so people are people, and doesn't matter what political ambitions they have. You have the same kind of people in all different aspects of the political realm. Some of them will say they don't, and they like to hide theirs, and they want to convert them. They send them to Jesus camp or something where they can convert them to Jesus. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, Hondo Solo. You know, Muslims might change their way if we threaten them with feminism. We're not going to send an army. Nah. Do I have my light? Oh, shit, my light broke. I was going to use this as a pointer. Oh, well, I got to get a new one. Yeah, there would be certain backlash. I think that would scare them more than arms or guns or men with guns, and not only with the guns. Yeah. Oh, we don't even need to arm them. It would be a cheap military assault, wouldn't it? You don't have to arm them. They got them mouths. Them mouths are like nuclear. Them mouths are like nuclear rockets. You know, they start just shooting them into your soul. They're armed with they're armed with vitriolic statements, and them vitriolic statements go from little bombs to big bombs. So I would think that would be the way I would go if I was like in charge. Me being a cynic, because I like the philosophy of Diogenes. I thought the guy was cool. He lived in a barrel at the end of a walkway on the end of a wall, and of course the weather was hospitable there and everything, and I suppose there would be times where he'd have to come indoors or provide himself with some exterior clothing in that sense. But I like his philosophy, and I'm a cynic at heart. You can hear it in my I like absurdism, because absurdism is like sarcasm. When you make something so absurd that somebody understands that that's absurd. We can give SFM credit for inventing milk apple party. One of his he understands absurdism. When you look around, blue pill people are very absurd, while wanting to travel. I think this goes into the ugly American too. Why wanting to travel and go around and become that cosmopolitan person. they want to carry. There's a difference here, and that's what I was trying to say through this whole thing. If you're carrying Western ideologies with you when you're traveling, at least American ideologies and neo-American ideologies, he's like the alt-rightism and that stuff, you're going to be looked at as the ugly American. And we've seen that after World War II in France. They coined it, and I think that was the ugly American when they coined it was rootless cosmopolitanism. It was a rhetorical thing to debase, and it was used as a pejorative then. It was rootless cosmopolitanism, and we see this with a lot of people. And I probably have to do a little more research into the etymology, or at least the epistemology of rootless cosmopolitanism, because that's where things get turned on its head and ideas get turned on its head, and we can see how Stalin did it, and Trump does it, and Vladimir Putin did it too. We can see how it is used against the press, and I was always against governments using stuff like rootless cosmopolitanism against the press, because it leads to it hinges on some of our laws that the government can't tell the press what to write, and then our whole system is based on that, because we all know who Ben Franklin was, you know. Yeah, but it's great in MGTOW where we can have discourse about this stuff. We used to be able to have discourse more about, and that was the Fight Club. The Fight Club, sort of an exalted subject. We take on and we discuss and we have discord about humans and how precarious life is, and how we all have ideas, and we all think about things different and stuff. We don't see a lot of that around, but that is actually a good thing. It's really a good thing, because it tends to stave off groupthink. And groupthink is the worst thing in the whole world, because it comes to, that's when you get groupthink, and then you can pretty much say you are a cult then. I seen years ago, Radfem went through this period of time in the late, probably the late 2000s, 2006, 2007, and 2008. Radical feminism went through a period of groupthink, and they became ultra radical, and they became cultish, and that's when you've seen the worst of them. They had to go hire and it's incredible. And I take some of my knowledge from what they did there. They had to go hire a group's dynamics person like me and come in and fix those things, and because they started to group thinking, and the basic truth about that is you have to have discourse, and you have to have a dissenting opinion on something. A lot of companies will do that. You put the rebel in the bunch, and the rebel, whatever everybody else thinks, he gives a dissenting opinion to it, and then it staves off groupthink. And God forgive, but God, if MGTOW ever went down the line, and that's what I do see happening here a little bit, as we implode into ourselves from the diaphragm, guys. When you do that, you got a diaphragm. From what MGTOW was, a very multicultural, diverse place. We didn't really care about what political aspects you believed in, and those things, and what party you were, and everything. Somewhere down the line, we got hijacked. We got corralled. we and And we've seen entryism from the alt-right and a lot of these hate groups that seen MGTOW as fertile ground for their philosophies of hate. And I think Milo, when he came in, it was a very unlikely source too. When you look at that guy, someone should write a book of, about the cognitive dissonance of Milo. And because that guy, he's on one hand he's a gay, and on the other hand he's married to a man and a black man. On the other hand, he expounds out rightism and hate. And boy, what cognitive dissonance must be in that head. I'd like to take a tour of that. And but he's got that pizzazz. Pizzazz. You got to have the pizzazz to get that shit off. Socialism 101. Yeah, Socialism 101. I took Socialism 101 back in the day. I was actually happy to read back when I grew up. All the Russian novelists were they weren't allowed in our libraries because I lived in a little hate-filled town that the church ran everything, and if you read Russian novelists, you were a commie, and they would beat you. And I do remember having some magazines and having some I had Mad magazine, and I had Crumbs magazines, and reading them, and I got caught with them, and they physically abused me for getting caught with Mad magazine. And what they did is a paddle. People don't get paddled in school anymore, but the wood shop teacher had made this special paddle, and it was going to be for me, and it had holes in it, and it was aerodynamically designed to cause pain to myself. And I got 3 swats with that paddle. And they abused me as a child for reading censored material. They called it censored material. So I always had something up my craw for people that censor material. I mean, if you want to read about Marx and you want to know about his ideologies, guess where you're going to have to go? You're going to have to go read Marx. I hate people that practice hypocrisy. And they never read Marx, and then they have opinions about Marx and what Marx was, and they relate it to other communist philosophies and everything. I don't really care about that. That's all in the past. You can do intersectionality with these things, but it's never be that. It could never be that again. That's in the past. He's long dead. That guy's birth certificate covered with glitter. No, that's funny, Silent Sage. He's got a birth certificate that's covered with a glitter bomb goes off when you open it. Just, no, that's funny. Thank you for that. No. If you can't see the humor in some of this stuff, then wow. I mean, you're not MGTOW. I always said if you can't see the humor in a lot of this stuff, you got to get deep into your MGTOW, because it's a funny place around here. You sit on the MGTOW bench, just look at that. If you can't see the humor, you're not having no fun. It's a miserable place. I think my copycat account, it must be a miserable place. MGTOW must be. Why come around MGTOW if MGTOW's a miserable place? And I always thought you get the married men that come in here, and they find it to be miserable and worthy of arguments and all that stuff. And I always thought, man, if there was a bar in my neighborhood that smelled like open ass and dog, I wouldn't go there. It would be a miserable place for me to be. And if they had rude, obnoxious people in that bar, I wouldn't go there. It would just be a logical, pragmatic decision of mine that man, this place stinks. It's like somebody's dog died in there, and and they got obnoxious people that seem to have too much bacteria in their brains. And yeah, that would be a pragmatic decision not to do that. But people are funny. They come around here and they want to espouse their opinions to us and carry us home to the blue pill slavery land. But today's topic was international cosmopolitanism and the hypocrisy I see with the alt-right, not the alt-righters, the blah 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 blah. I got an old person spell here. The expatriates, yeah, the expatriates, and how hypocritical they are of being part of this and then not being part of it at the same time, and carrying two different ideas in their head that are conversely the opposite, and that stuff. Gotta go. See you guys. See ya, Hondo. Thanks for stopping by. I was just doing my my new channel. This is going to be my new channel. It'll be a slightly different format, and we're going to talk more about philosophy. We're going to talk about world events. We're going to talk about hypocrisy, things like that, and we'll go down the Marx line one of these days, and we'll look at Marx and look at what Marx was, and that'll take a little bit of reading, and most people have the myth of Marx in their head, and we'll do that one of these days, and see where that lands on the male point of view, or the MGTOW point of view, and that's all that this is about, anyways. So I think I'm pretty much done for this segment, and zero downvotes. I mean, wow. They'll find it. My detractor found me. My copycat detractor found me, and I suppose he's probably sleeping right now, which gives me an idea where he lives. And it's 2:33. So yeah. So that's it. I'm going to let y'all guys go, and then I'll probably come back later with another topic, and we'll speak about it, and get myself warm here, and get myself settled in, and get myself something to eat, and get Dougie something to eat. Hello, Prune Juice Power. You've been lurking? Have you been lurking? Yeah, lurking is cool. I lurk a lot. I lurk on most I get notices now when someone has a podcast or something, and sometimes I'm just out with my phone, so I'll turn it on and I lurk, because I hate typing. I got fat fingers. I got fat finger phone fingers that don't work, and so I can't type on the phone. And I found that out that they should make phones for guys with fat fingers that just can't do that. And but they don't think about us. It's all gynocentric phones. So I think I'm going to head off into the abyss of my world here, and try to get Dougie something to eat, and me something to eat, and try to warm up a little, because it's cold here. It's really cold. And that's about it. And like always, thanks for coming around, guys, and thanks for listening if you did listen, and thanks for being most of all, thanks for being men. Y'all take care. Bye.